The sun was just beginning to rise over the sleepy town of Oakridge, its golden fingers stretching across the rusted rooftops and dusty fields. The town came to life slowly, roosters crowed, a few pickup trucks rumbled down the gravel road, and the faint scent of fresh coffee drifted from the corner diner. At Turner's auto garage, the screech of a rolling toolbox echoed faintly against the tin walls. Inside, Eli Turner was already hard at work, his oil-streaked hands buried in the underbelly of a '97 Ford pickup. He didn't talk much, just the occasional "pass me the 14mm" to his teenage apprentice, Kyle. The boy never asked too many questions. You learned quick in Oakridge, Eli Turner wasn't the chatty type. Eli's garage was cluttered but efficient, every wrench and socket perfectly placed. His movements were deliberate, methodical, like someone trained to make every action count. He had the quiet rhythm of a man who found peace in precision, who spoke through the hum of engines and the click of ratchets. Most folks in town figured Eli had always been there. He'd shown up about 5 years back, bought the old garage after Mr. Delaney passed, and never really spoke of where he came from. People assumed he was just another drifter who'd found a place to settle. No one asked too many questions. Small towns respected privacy, especially the kind wrapped in polite nods and long silences. But not everyone was convinced. Old Sam Jenkins, who spent more time at the diner than at home, once leaned across the counter and whispered to anyone who'd listen, "That Turner fella, he ain't just a mechanic. You see the way he stands? Like he's still reporting for duty. And those hands, scarred up like he's been through hell and back." People chuckled at Sam's stories. After all, Sam was known for spinning yarns. But something about Eli lingered. He wasn't just quiet. He was watchful. Like he was always scanning, always calculating. Like he'd seen things the rest of them couldn't imagine. Still, Eli kept to himself. He fixed trucks, helped elderly folks without charging them, and gave Kyle free lunch on long days. Every Sunday, he left flowers at the war memorial. No one asked why. The truth was, most people didn't need to know more. Eli got things done, showed up on time, and never complained. In a world full of noise and bravado, his silence was a kind of comfort. A stillness that made people feel like, no matter what broke down, Eli Turner could fix it. But no one in Oakridge, not even old Sam, had any idea what Eli had really left behind, or what he was still capable of. The lunch rush was in full swing at Millie's diner. Plates of chicken fried steak clattered on tables, the jukebox hummed out an old Johnny Cash tune, and conversation buzzed like a swarm of bees. Farmers, truckers, and store clerks filled the booths, laughing between bites, trading stories about the summer heat and stubborn tractors. Eli sat alone at the corner stool, quietly sipping black coffee. He always sat at the end, closest to the window, where he could watch the town unfold like clockwork. Millie had already stopped trying to make small talk with him, she just refilled his cup with a warm smile. Then everything changed. The diner's television, usually ignored, suddenly blared a breaking news alert. The entire room stilled as the screen flashed to aerial footage, flames swallowing the pine-covered hills just outside Oakridge. A wildfire had sparked during the night and was spreading fast, faster than expected. The reporter's voice trembled. A group of 6 hikers is currently trapped on Black Ridge Trail. A rescue Black Hawk helicopter was dispatched by the National Guard. However, reports are now coming in that the pilot has experienced mechanical failure in midair. A second crew is hours away. The screen cut to shaky footage of the chopper hovering unsteadily over the smoke-filled valley. The rotor was visibly slowing, smoke streaming from the side. One wrong move, and it would drop like a stone. A low murmur of concern spread through the diner. Millie gasped, one hand over her heart. "That's not far from here," someone said. "Those poor people." Eli didn't say a word. But something in his eyes changed. He stood up slowly, placed a few bills on the counter, and reached for his jacket, an old, worn military-style one no one had really noticed before. "Eli?" Millie called after him. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer. He just nodded once and walked out, his boots heavy against the linoleum floor. Out on the street, the heat shimmered off the pavement. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. At the fire station, emergency crews scrambled, shouting into radios, scanning the skies. Eli walked straight up to the lead coordinator, a young National Guard sergeant pacing nervously near a comms truck. "I heard the chopper's in trouble," Eli said calmly. The sergeant blinked, startled. "That's right. The backup's an hour out. We're trying to figure out. I can fly it." The words hung heavy in the air. The sergeant frowned. "Sir, with respect, who are you?" "Chief Warrant Officer Eli Turner. Retired. 160th SOAR. I've flown Black Hawks in worse conditions than this. Get me in the air." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, the sergeant radioed someone, voice tight. Within minutes, the clearance came through. And just like that, the quiet mechanic the town thought they knew disappeared into a fireproof flight suit, strapped into the cockpit of a Black Hawk, and lifted off. Headed straight into the blaze. Back at the diner, Mill. The Black Hawk rumbled to life, its rotors slicing the smoke-heavy air like a blade through water. On the helipad beside Oakridge's small fire station, a small crowd had gathered, firefighters, paramedics, and a handful of townsfolk drawn by the noise and news. They stared in disbelief as Eli Turner, the man they'd known for years as a quiet mechanic, climbed into the pilot's seat like it was second nature. Inside the cockpit, the controls responded to his touch with eerie familiarity. His fingers moved with precision, running quick diagnostics, flipping switches, calibrating the HUD. All around him, the machine hummed, old yet alive, like a part of him had just awakened. Back on the ground, the fire chief stood beside the sergeant, still trying to process what he was seeing. "You're sure about him?" he asked. The sergeant nodded, voice low. 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Night Stalkers. That unit flies missions no one else touches. Classified stuff. According to DC. This guy's the real deal. But, he fixes brake pads, the chief muttered, watching as Eli adjusted his headset. "Yeah," the sergeant replied, eyes locked on the helicopter. "But he used to fly through combat zones in pitch black with zero visibility. If anyone can pull this off, it's him." What the crowd didn't know, what Eli had never told them, was why he left the skies. 5 years ago, on a mission deep in hostile territory, Eli had been the lead pilot on a nighttime extraction. His co-pilot, Mason, was his best friend, brothers not by blood, but by war. Just minutes from safety, an unexpected missile strike hit their tail. Eli had managed to land the damaged bird, saving the passengers, but Mason, he hadn't made it. That night haunted Eli every time he closed his eyes. He left the service weeks later, unable to face another cockpit, grounded by grief and guilt. He wandered for a year before settling in Oakridge, hoping silence and routine might fill the void. But you can't bury who you are, not completely. The sky had always called to him. He just stopped answering. Until today. Eli steadied the controls and looked out over the smoke-choked forest. He heard the dispatcher confirm the Black Hawk's location. Altitude dropping. Primary pilot semi-conscious. No way to land safely. He keyed his mic. "Guardian 2, this is Echo 1. I'm coming to you. Hold steady. Help is on the way." The voice on the other end crackled weakly but responded. "Copy. Echo 1. We'll try to hold." Eli's jaw clenched. The call sign felt like a time machine, pulling him back into a life he thought he'd left behind. But this time, it wasn't war. It was rescue. It was redemption. And he wasn't going to fail. As he angled the chopper into the sky and disappeared into the orange haze, the townsfolk below watched in stunned silence. For the first time, they weren't just seeing Eli Turner, the mechanic. They were witnessing Eli Turner, the pilot. The sky was a canvas of chaos, billows of black smoke twisted upward like angry spirits, and embers flickered in the air like fireflies from a darker world. Eli gripped the controls tightly, squinting through the dense haze as the radio crackled with half-finished coordinates and faint distress signals. The damaged Black Hawk finally came into view, hovering unevenly near a steep ridge. One of its rotors was failing, and the tilt was becoming dangerous. The pilot, barely conscious, was fighting to keep it in the air. Panic clung to the voices on the radio like static. "Guardian 2, this is Echo 1. I have you in sight," Eli said, calm but firm. "I'm taking over control. Begin auto-stabilize on my signal." The moment felt surreal. After 5 years away from the sky, from this kind of danger, Eli was flying as though no time had passed. His fingers moved instinctively across the console. Every breath was deliberate. Every second counted. The first challenge was synchronization. With flames creeping up the slope below, there was no room for error. Eli brought his Black Hawk close, too close, some might say, and locked the systems to initiate a tandem stabilization. The crowd watching from town, now gathered in front of Millie's diner where someone had wheeled out a television to monitor the live rescue feed, held their collective breath. Inside the damaged bird, the co-pilot was slumped forward, barely responsive. Eli took over their systems remotely, an advanced maneuver he hadn't practiced in years. "I've got you," he muttered. With sweat dripping down his brow and the rotor screaming under pressure, Eli engaged the emergency docking clamps and brought the other chopper close enough to transfer navigation. Slowly, carefully, he guided both machines away from the ridgeline. Then came the descent. The drop zone was a narrow clearing barely wider than a basketball court, surrounded by dry trees that looked ready to ignite at any moment. With flawless precision, Eli brought the first Black Hawk down. Medics rushed in to extract the pilot and crew. Then, before the dust even settled, Eli lifted off again. There were still 6 hikers trapped farther north. Back in town, silence blanketed the streets as the live feed showed Eli soaring toward the rescue point. A few locals wiped tears from their eyes. Millie held her apron tightly in her fists. Kyle, Eli's apprentice, stood frozen, pride and awe plastered across his face. 20 minutes later, the second feed showed Eli's Black Hawk returning, 6 shaken but alive hikers in the back, wrapped in blankets and crying with relief. When he finally touched down, the gathered emergency crew broke into spontaneous applause. But Eli didn't climb out like a hero. He sat in the cockpit for a few seconds longer, staring at the horizon. The fire had changed course. The danger had passed. Then he exhaled. Back in Oakridge, people didn't just see Eli Turner anymore. They saw the man who risked his life. Why?